And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Signal Caller. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Solo Lopez. PORSBR is my Twitter handle. And the Solo Lopez is, if you're not, you're missing a lot of good tweets if you block them. But you have to do that. But check us out there. My YouTube channel has the Student Body Right USC podcast. Spring game coming up. You don't want to miss all that coverage there. Also have the Raiders with myself and Ryan Holmes and this show. We'll be doing some more stuff, even though this is I think we'll talk about the quarterback situation, but I think we're gonna stick with the number one overall, and then just take it from there.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, we're gonna go with Caleb Williams and talk about him on this episode. So this will be the episode of the Caleb Williams show, basically the Caleb Williams show. He has been the best quarterback in the last couple of seasons. He is ever since he replaced Spencer Rattler, he has not looked back. He talked about that. He said, "Hey, once I got that situation, I didn't want to ever go back again and be a backup again." So he's kind of took off from there, can do all the things. I don't think he is a Patrick Mahomes, prototype. I think he's more. I think the comp is a little bit different for me with that. But let's get started with Caleb Williams. What are your thoughts about Caleb Williams and his prospects of being a all-star, all-pro quarterback?
I think he's been the number one overall pick for the last 2 years now. I don't think there's any controversy with saying that. I think that he's been an excellent player at USC. He's carried the USC team, I would say, on his back offensively, obviously, and with a defense that is run by a coach that's notoriously, doesn't run good defenses at his program. It's been a lot to carry the burden for him, and I think he's shown that. I think the idea that we're getting into this, Caitlin Clark's not good because she didn't win a national title, or Caleb Williams is not good because he didn't win a national title nonsense. I don't think that's a reason to hold back or discredit or disparage any of these top elite prospects when we're looking at them. Creatively wise, on the run, in the pocket, and shotgun. Throwing the deep ball, throwing the intermediate ball. I think he's just levels above anybody else. And I think that we're going to see that when he's drafted number one overall. We're going to see that. And I think if he does go to Chicago, which I think we're all obviously assuming that he's going to go number one, I think we've said that from the start. I've been very adamant that the Bears were never going to choose Justin Fields over Caleb Williams. That narrative was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. We made it very clear over and over again from the start of this process, especially me when pushing back on that Justin Fields ridiculous nonsense talk, that it was going to be Caleb Williams from the start. It was always going to be Caleb Williams. He was going to be the guy that either dictated whether he was going to go to Chicago. And if he said, I didn't want to, then that's the only scenario I would have seen where they would have traded him out. But I just think for the last 2 years, he's been the best quarterback prospect. And I think it was he wanted to stay at USC. He stayed at USC. He made the transfer. He was successful there. He scored a ton of touchdowns. He made it clear that he was the top prospect. And here we are. Now we're about a little ways away from seeing him draft number one. And I think Shane Waldron is a phenomenal play caller for him to go to. And not only is he getting that in Chicago, but he's getting DeAndre Swift. He's getting Khalil Herbert. He's getting Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. He's got a bevy of players that are going to be waiting there for him, that are going to be able to take advantage of his ability. And I think his ability is level one. It's S tier. He's top of the line.
I would say, to bring it to it, because the Raiders don't have a chance to get them. So
no.
This is they kept, maybe if they kept Josh McDaniels, they might have. But real talk, people talked about our, Derek Carr for years, right? And they said all he needed was a good defense, and he would have been phenomenal. He'd been whatever.
Super Bowl is what they said mostly. He'd be in the Super Bowl with the top 10 defense immediately.
Exactly. Well, he had one last year, but
Yeah, they missed the
but
playoffs.
like exactly. So like my thing about with Caleb Williams is what he did in the last two seasons. What it is what it looks like when you have no defense.
Yeah,
Like this is like that's what it looks like. So for fans who try to like tell me and you what it looks like as far as like like it's not like Derek Carr games started off 21-0. Like there were games in this. I mean, he got outdueled by Michael Penix. The score of that game, folks, 52-42. Like he has to make no. He made one error in that game, kind of like Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. Made one error in that game. He fumbled the football in his own end, and holding the ball for too long, and it didn't have good ball protection there. But I mean that's what he had to do in order to keep his team just to be competitive in games. That's what it
yeah.
really looks like when you have no defense. So
And
stop.
it's not a stranger to just him. We've seen the Lincoln Riley situation before. It's not a unique problem with Caleb Williams. It's been a problem with Lincoln Riley's program for years now.
Yeah, and that's why they spent the entire offseason revamping the entire defensive staff, including getting Eric Henderson from the Rams to coach the defensive line as well. Um, I knew when people came after him for crying in his mom's hands in mom's arms when basically the season was over for them. Because they couldn't make a play. They couldn't make the playoffs. I knew that
It's
when
basically his
they,
career at that point in college, wasn't it?
yeah,
Because you couldn't win the Pac-12 after that.
he couldn't. You
Yeah,
could. I think it was more. I think it was because they as up and down as they were, they had a shot of doing something if they had beat Washington. Because
yeah,
Washington was ranked so high. Maybe if they had beat Washington, but they lost to Washington, so they basically ended their season.
yeah.
Um, that he was from time to time he wears fingernail polish. He has a pink iPhone. Like that's when I knew how good he was because you can't touch his ability on the field. So we go to the mayonnaise and the coffee type stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, my main question was, why do you think he was so polarizing over these last 2 years? Why do you think people took shots at the smallest and the minute stuff that really didn't matter, like the crying into his mom situation, the fingernail situation, the like? Why is it that he draws such a polarizing perspective from fans and media alike?
Well, I think I'll speak for college football fans. I think part of it was the head coach who is a really good coach, but he hasn't gotten to the pinnacle yet. So
Sure.
anything that Lincoln Riley, if it's Lincoln Riley, like he's polarizing. Like I mean, ESPN just had a top 10 head coaches in college football. He wasn't in it, which is funny because
Yeah.
say what you want about like Lincoln Riley, he's in the top 10 of head coaches in football, in college football. So it's LA, it's California, and it's what he does off the field, which is nothing besides play Legos with his girlfriend. But like literally, like if you follow Instagram, he's like literally playing Legos with his girlfriend.
Can't take him number one overall. He plays Legos.
And play in his apartment in Los Angeles, but whatever. But I think the fingernails, all stuff like that, it's just like what it does. It bothers the fake tough guy
Mm,
every football fan. We meet those
yeah.
tough guy dudes, like the guys who go to Twitter Spaces, flex their chest. You didn't play football. You just
Yeah.
the ogres, the Neanderthals. They can't tell you anything analytical about football. They can't tell you like when you hit them with facts, they get quiet or they leave.
Are you
But
talking about the OGs that are actually hostesses in the airlines?
yeah, I'm just saying, for real. Like those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Like I mean, like you
Yeah.
can't like there's not a they can't. really go in depth with it. So they just go with the ogre stuff because that's what, they feel
Yeah.
like football is. Football is a lot more, football is big, physical, being nasty, all those things like that, but it's also very strategic. Why do you think like somebody like McVay is just running circles around people offensively in the league?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the reason why. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's more strategy than anything else. And players can see through the I mean, like I said, I'm hoping it doesn't come to that point, but like people at some point, I'm hoping like the strategic and this like the strategy of football and what to do in certain moments doesn't strike Antonio Pierce in the bad way, where like we're wondering like, hey, like okay, that wasn't a good coaching decision. Like I know you're young, but you spent the whole offseason as the head coach of the Raiders. Like
Yeah.
you should be prepared for these moments. Like those are kind of things I'm kind of worried about with the team going forward. But to bring the circle back to Caleb Williams, like it's LA, it's California. Like people are polarizing. Like people will on Twitter now. It's so political in this country now. Like anything with California, people will try to will
Yeah.
will try to crap on the state for. But if the money was equal, they would live here. But if their money was equal, they would live here rather than where they live. So I don't know what the point
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I found it strange that a lot of these things kind of caught fire, and it was almost because like people were just didn't really have anything bad to say about him football wise,
Or off the field, or
and
off the field.
or off the field, yeah, and they're like he's not getting into trouble, he's not doing a lot of these things, so it was just and then even the combine stuff, it got really bad. It got to the point where it's like, well, why is he doing this with his medicals? Why is he selfish? Is he this? Is he that? Is he playing it up to be a diva just because? It's like, when does all this stuff really matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, if you look at the guy, if you take
It
his number
died.
off, you take his name, his last name off, you take the team, and you just look at him throw the ball against defenses. If you look at him and his stats just on the surface, you even have to just look at the stats on the surface and be like, okay, well, this is different than someone else. Like, this is not the same as a Drake May. Like, this is just not. And if you're looking at it just from that perspective alone, even from a casual perspective, it's like, well, obviously this guy's way different than what we've seen here in the last couple of years. And I mean, if you look at hype, I would say that this is one of the biggest hype prospects since Trevor Lawrence. But Trevor Lawrence, the problem I think with Trevor Lawrence was that he didn't blow you away on the stat sheet in college. He just didn't.
No.
And outside of the one game, I think they only won once with Trevor Lawrence because he got blown out the next year by Joe Burrow. And so it was like, okay, well, he did win the national title. Like, they were really good in that time. Clemson was awesome in that span. But they were all also awesome under Deshaun Watson as well. So they were already an established program. Whereas you look at like USC hasn't been that good in I would say in a very long time. I mean, you would obviously know more than me. So you're not taking on a program in that situation with the expectation like you're automatically going to be in the national title this next year, and maybe people are holding that against him in that sense as well, that he just didn't turn around the program and make him a winner. But I mean, his individual play is what we're trying to isolate away from all that, and not just take the credit away from him because USC never won a national title. So it just feels weird. It's been a weird cycle. It's been different than the last few years with these number one overall prospects for sure. And considering the state of the draft of the five quarterbacks that went in the last few in I believe it was 2020 or 2021, the Justin Fields draft. Considering how polarizing that draft is now, where Zach Wilson's likely going to be gone, Justin Fields was just traded. Mac Jones is likely not going to be there, or he was already traded to Jacksonville. And Trey Lance has already been traded. He was the first to go. So it's like these players are all gone outside of Trevor Lawrence that were all drafted in the first round in that draft. And now we are looking at another draft in the face where it looks like another 5 or 6 guys are going to go in the first round, and possibly 6 guys in the top 40 and then top 45. So you're looking at the position strictly off of so many basis and variables now. And just to add in the NIL money and to add in the off the field stuff and the stuff that really doesn't matter, in my opinion, like the fingernail stuff, the crying, like things that people are trying to create narratives over. At the end of the day, this is the number one overall pick that we're talking about, and he's going to be the number one overall pick. And from the second that the season ended for Carolina, and the Bears got the number one overall pick, it was Caleb Williams from the start. I will not believe that there was any real discussion that Justin Fields was going to be taken and built around, quote unquote, built around over Caleb Williams. It just never seemed plausible to me. This guy's been the number one overall pick, so all the narrative was just cloud and smoke and nonsense. And now we're going to be here where he's going to be in a good offense with a good offensive play caller on a team that has never been really known for good offense. And we'll see if he can change Chicago for the best. And I think he can.
I think the thing that really makes me laugh too is that 20 what draft was it for Lawrence? What year was
it was
that?
2021, but I'm not entirely. It was either 2020 or 2021. I can't remember now.
It's funny because like the people use that draft as fuel for not taking a quarterback, which is like, oh man, you can't take a quarterback because you just can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. And it's like, dude, like, what are we like, what are we doing? Like, you mean like you like do you how do you watch football every single week and not understand that if you don't have a good quarterback, you are not going to be able to compete at the highest level.
Like even when you have a good quarterback, you can't compete at the highest level. But you have a better chance of doing it if you have one. You have a slim to none chance of competing consistently and winning consistently without a quarterback. I don't know. I mean, even when you have a really, really good one, someone who won MVP and was first team All-Pro this year, lost in the AFC Championship game to the best quarterback in football, Patrick Mahomes, and who went on to beat the best team in football with a quarterback who led all the categories in the stats, in Brock Purdy. He led basically almost every category that mattered this year, with a top defense, with a top play caller, with a top offense, with all pros everywhere. And what happened? They lost to Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. At least they're in the game. That's the point. You're not even putting yourself in the game if you refuse to get a quarterback. My question to
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, my question to those people who say, well, we shouldn't take a quarterback. Like, we got Gardner Minshew and we have Aiden O'Connell there. It's like, if you really fully believe that Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are going to be able to consistently compete with Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're wrong. That's just it. You're wrong. Your perspective on the game is wrong. Your grasp of how NFL teams succeed in the NFL is wrong. And you have to get this out of your mindset that the Raiders can't ever draft a quarterback. If not now, if not next year, if not the last 9 years, if not the years after Derek Carr, if not the years before Derek Carr outside of Jamarcus Russell, then when? When you don't win division titles, when you don't win playoff games, when is the right time to draft a quarterback? The team has consistently proven that they cannot build a championship team and then go draft a quarterback. So that's out the window. Anybody wants to try to say that. They've already built somewhat of a defense. Their biggest the biggest free agent in the NFL outside of quarterback was Christian Wilkins with a 4-year, $110 million deal. So not the guy that was actually on the market, he got the biggest contract. That was a non-quarterback. So it's like in this situation, they're doing what they think that is best for the strength of the team, which right now is the defense. But as far as the offensive situation, they haven't really done anything outside of signing Gardner Minshew, who's not the answer long term. By the way, I love Gardner Minshew. And then let Josh Jacobs walk out the door, which we'll know immediately if that's going to be a mistake or not in the first 6 weeks of the season. Like, we're going to know if Zeus can carry the load. Because Madison is not the guy. I promise you that. He's not going to go out there and rush for 11, 1,300 yards. There's just no way. He's not that guy. So
when the Raiders had Jamarcus Russell, wouldn't it have been nice if they had NIL back then? And I say that because of this. The one line that Deion Sanders used to use all the time was, money just makes you more of who you really are. Like, that would have been like, this is who Caleb Williams is. He's the first NIL star to kind of come through the ranks. Like, he got money. Like he's gonna get more NFL money, but like it's not like money's gonna actually change his whole like whatever. It's like he's not we're not gonna find him in the corner, in Chicago drinking purple drink. Like you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like I think the good thing about NIL to me is that these guys come into the game, NFL game, with money in their pocket. They've had to handle money. They've had to handle the pressures of everybody around them. Maybe like, hey, I helped you do this. Help me out. Help me out. Help me out.
Mhm.
Stuff like that, and be able to manage that. And now, those guys come to the league where they come with a more professional mindset. Because let's be honest, college football is just is professional football disguised
Semi-pro.
behind schools.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And they have to deal with the management team. They have to deal with all kinds of stuff now in terms of that. The money, I mean, he's legitimately coming into the NFL as a millionaire already, like that. And maybe that's why. And the changes that we have seen is the Marvin Harrison and the Caleb Williams stuff now, where these guys are coming in with money. And now they're not necessarily worried about the grind of the combine and the horror stories that we've heard out of the combine. Well, they asked me all these strange questions, and these what these teams did. And maybe he just said, "Nah, I'm not about that. I don't need to do any of that." Marvin Harrison maybe sat down and said, "Nah, I don't need to do any of that. Like you're either going to draft me or you're not going to draft me." And it's allowed for some players to take the spotlight in terms of and create a narrative around some of these players, but they don't have to do any of this now. They're not subservient to the scouting combine to have to do this, and maybe we'll start to see more and more of that. Not to the point where the combine is going to be eliminated. There's no way I think that's going to happen, considering I think that the combine is a blessing for a lot of guys. Look at Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle who looked like a total workout warrior, a Jason Pierre-Paul workout warrior award winner, basically for the combine. He looked fantastic. He looked like a superior athlete. Probably raised the stock by 2 rounds. Guys like that are going to need the combine forever. Guys like Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison are not. You're going to see their intangible, their measurables. You're going to see their play on the field, and that's going to have to be enough. And I think that's where Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison, and some of these other guys are changing this dynamic of the scouting combine. The medicals thing is like, oh my God, he's the first player ever not to give all the teams his medical. He's going to be drafted by one team, and that one team is going to have the number 1 overall pick, and that's the end of it. Unless Caleb Williams says, I want to go to Washington and I want to be a Commander, and you need to trade me. I'm not playing for Chicago, which it would have come out by now. I would be assuming that it would have come out by now if that's the direction he's going to go. But no, he's going to go to Chicago, and that's who's going to draft him, and he's going to give them their medicals, and that's it. Like that's the end of it.
I gotta say, I'm not surprised, but I do give them credit for like just going where they're gonna get drafted. I did kind of feel like he was gonna be like, I don't want to play in Chicago. You know what I mean? I don't want to play for the Bears.
Yeah.
I still think, and we'll talk about what he's walking into right now as far as the show, because I don't know. I don't. We can go around and round and round about his ability, but I think we all know who he is, and I think he's been the most consistent, most explosive quarterback in the draft over the last. I mean, in college football the last you could say 2.5 years, ever
Yeah.
ever since he became a starter. I don't love. I mean, like I like Jaden Daniels. I just wish that like he did have all those receivers and plus Butte year one, and you know I mean I wish I saw a little bit more production, but he did actually explode this year, so I give him credit for that and won the Heisman. Um, as far as that goes. I do wonder about him as a 1 year wonder though. As far as that goes, but Caleb was walking into Chicago, and I think that last year one of the things that people tried to when people had to Raider fans had to realign themselves because they weren't getting Kingsbury, they were getting Getsy. And the whole world was trying to blame it on not blame Getsy for any part of the Chicago's mess up offensively last year.
Yeah.
I remember walking into a space and saying, "Hey, but he did have the number one what can I call it? The number one time in the
Time to
pocket,
throw.
time to
Mm-hmm.
throw in the pocket." According to Football Reference, and they were like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" I'm like, "Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that from?" I'm like, "From not Pro Football Focus. I got it from Pro Football Reference, which is a which is a better, I think is a better site for that stuff. And people didn't have answers for it. So that means potentially he's walking into a defense. I mean, walking into an offensive unit where they should be able to run the football. Um, he played in the shotgun forever at USC, so occasionally he did go in the center, but not a lot. He'll be in the center a little bit more in the pros now, but like they do have an opportunity to run the football a little bit. The play action will be there. The boot stuff is going to be there with Waldron. They have Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore, good young tight end, and Cole Kmet. Also, when they want to go, two tight ends, they have Gerald Everett, who's always been a really good receiving tight end as well. So, and who knows, like we could be teaming up those receivers with a Roma Dunze or a Brian Williams or Brian Thomas or who knows as far as that goes receiver
I think
wise.
it's going to be pass rusher or a tackle at 9.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
All my mocks have had them splitting it, going Caleb 1 and offense 1, obviously, and then with their 9th pick defense. It just makes more sense to me, in my opinion. They have a defensive head coach. You're going to get Caleb number 1. He's going to solidify your offense, and then you can either solidify the offensive line. But they have 2 tackles that they do like, so it could be the guard. But I think if one of the pass rushers is there, I think that's where they go. You want to keep building with Montez Sweat, keep building on that defense that you've been trying to do. And Montez Sweat was actually a really, really good pickup. He had 12 and a half sacks last year. He actually led not only led the Commanders in sacks last year, but led the Bears in sacks last year as well. He was the sack leader for both teams, which is not something that you see very often, especially when someone's traded at the trade deadline. But he's just a productive player, and for them to, I think they only gave up a 2nd-round pick for him, as well as the contract. I mean, it feels like they're trying to build an identity on that side of the football, and they've hit on that trade as well. And so I think they'll split, or they'll add another offensive lineman in that regard. I don't think they'll go with a wide receiver. That'll be 3 years in a row, or instances where they traded a receiver for DJ Moore, then they traded for Keenan Allen, and then draft a wide receiver at 9 would be a little overkill, even though you want that explosive electric offense. It just feels more in line with the betterment of the team to be able to go out there and get another defender or another offensive lineman.
So when does Moore and Allen's contract end? So that's where I would say.
I think Keenan Allen is I think because of the guarantee situation that Los Angeles would be paying him, I think that his contract is effectively a 2-year deal, but they don't have any guarantees, I don't think, past this year. So they have to pay him.
That's where I would think that. I mean, listen, they can go. Actually, they don't have a lot of picks in this draft. They only have 4.
They only have 4, yeah.
They only have 4. So I was, and that next pick is not for a while. So let me see where they actually pick in that draft. Because I'm thinking I am a proponent of the Bill Walsh theory that the last position you draft is wide receiver. I don't think I think we go too crazy with wide receiver like we're playing Madden. I just don't love that that part of it as far as that goes. Let me see here. The Bears don't pick again until, let me just see what the Bears, let me just click on the Bears first. The Bears, they pick at 75 after their first 2 picks in the top 10.
So that's a 3rd rounder?
That's a 3rd rounder, the 11th pick in that 3rd round. So they have to do some moving and grooving to get back into the first round. Second round.
The 2nd round. You could effectively, it would probably be easy to find a trade partner and move up to 9 if McCarthy is going to be there, or if one of the quarterbacks drops to 9. I think like I said, I think the 6th overall pick is what's really going to change the entire draft, because I don't think Arizona's going to move. I really do believe they're going to take Marvin Harrison at 4. And if the Patriots stand pat, no pun intended, and take a quarterback there, then you're looking at a situation where McCarthy becomes the guy everybody wants to either trade up for or try to wait around for in that situation. And with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can only really make the case for the Giants at 6 to taking a quarterback in that situation. And so in that regard, all those other picks become hot commodity assets to either trade up with a team like or trade down, back with a team like Minnesota or Denver or knock on wood the Raiders in order to move up and grab a guy.
I agree with the philosophy of drafting O-line there, but I just feel like it's going to be a doomsday. If a doomsday is there, I think they're taking him.
That would be imagine Caleb Williams to Roman Dunze.
Yeah,
Walk-in.
I really feel like he is one of those rookies, like a Larry Fitzgerald type, just to come in and he's ready to rip it up. He's gonna rip it up when he gets in the league. So
look, I'm on record. I'll be on record again here. I think Roman Dunze is the second best player, the second best receiver at his position. I like him more than Malik Neighbors. I just do.
Yeah. And like Neighbors to me, anything like if I hear, I'm like after looking at Rashid Rice and looking at some of these receivers who have escaped some of these moments, I'm looking sideways at anybody who gives me any kind of issue off the field. Especially like, especially close to the draft or whatever. I'm gonna be very careful and very cognitive of what I see there as far as that goes. Let's see here.
Well, look, I have this philosophy now. I've said this before. Wide receivers now coming into the NFL, everybody's running 3 sets. Everybody's running spread. All colleges are trying to pass the ball. I mean, there's like probably 5 that don't. But like you look at it, the offensive philosophy of the NFL and of the college football, and it's all wide receivers. It's all passing the ball. It's all trying to spread it out. It's all trying to find the best guy at the third position that's your matchup nightmare. And a lot of these 11 personnel runs now with Sean McVay basically revolutionizing the passing game with how he's been able to use his sets together, run everything out of 11 personnel, and then basically have all these other staples or all these other people basically come off of his and Shanahan's systems. It's all centered around getting these wide receivers the ball and not necessarily being a downfield threat, but getting these guys the ball in space, getting these guys on mismatches and getting the ball to them in that situation. So it's like I equate it, and I have always equated it for the last couple of years to the 3-point shot in the NBA. It's like everybody's shooting the 3 now, and that's the thing with wide receivers. You can find a guy that can shoot the 3 ball in the second round of the NBA draft, which is no man's land. You can find a 5, a center that shoots the 3 ball pretty well. He might not do anything else well, but if he can go out there and be 6'10" and 6'11" and shoot the 3 ball, he's going to have a place in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And that's with the NFL. You're going to be able to find a guy in every round of the draft. In every round to be able to be productive and be consistent with you. You can find guys off the street that have been successful coming off the street to do that, where they might just have stretches of play where you're like, this guy saved me in these 5 weeks. He's never been good again. But in those 5 weeks, he saved me in that situation. And he was a wide receiver that, remember Richie James for the Giants. Richie James basically saved his play literally saved their playoff season and for Daniel Jones 2 years ago. So it's like he became the guy they needed him to be. And it's like he was never that guy again, obviously. But it's just stretches of guys that you can find anywhere and everywhere. So if you're 100% sure, you take the guy. But if there's even a 99 or 98% sure where you're like, well, there's some hesitation there. There's some hesitancy for whatever reason. You're going to be able to find a guy anywhere. And you don't have to use a top 10 pick on a guy like that. There's going to be generational talents. But other than that, you're going to be able to find a guy.
Yeah. I think just back to Caleb real quick. I would say this: if he is willing to take the boring play, I think the sky is going to be the limit for him. If he's willing to just take that 5-yard pass when it's there and and let the athletes around him be the athletes around him. He talked about running. He's like people asked him straight out. I think it was Steve White. He was like flat out. He was like, I don't like to run. I run out of necessity. I don't like to run though. Like that was one of his things he said. So I mean, I think he'd much rather be the passer that he wants to be. The comp that I have is more Aaron Rodgers than anything else. Like that he's not gonna blow by you with speed, but he's fast enough to just knows when to get out of that telephone booth and make plays with his legs, whether it's pressing the line of scrimmage and throwing the ball down the field, or just get on 3rd and 7 getting 8 yards and and getting that first down. I've seen him do it 20 million times, and they're back breaking plays for the defense. He is, he's not afraid of that big moment. He puts in the work. He loves the game. Like all the things you like about a starting quarterback, and he's a great leader. If he was not a great leader, football fans, you would have heard about it. Trust and believe you would have heard about it.
especially with Caleb Williams.
Yes, trust me.
Any kind of
So
story like that would have played. It would have sold anywhere to
yes,
any social media site or anything. So it is what it is, man.
it is
Like
what it
there's no need
is.
to make up narratives about a guy to hold him back on a football wise. We know he's going number one. It's all
Yeah.
about your opinion. You're either on one side of the train or the other. I don't think there's really any middle ground. And for
Yes.
me, and I think for you as well, we think he's going to be a game changer. I think he's the best quarterback coming out. I have him as overall. He's got all the abilities. He nets the page basically.
I would say that for Chicago, I don't think I'm worried about is for Chicago is that it's Chicago. And
Yeah.
I'm worried about Chicago being able to be able to do this the right way, because they haven't been able to do it with a quarterback in their history. I mean, what they're the only team that doesn't have a 4,000 yard passer,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. 30 touchdown, passer as well too. So we'll see what happens there. But I think the Raiders are in the bottom three of the top six quarterbacks, opposed to the top three guys. So we'll see what happens there. I did want to get your point about we talked about a lot of different things here today, but the Josh Allen situation in Buffalo, I don't necessarily feel like it's as I think people think it's like dire and it's the end of the world. And I know some people are like on Twitter who like hate Josh. I didn't realize that there were that many Josh Allen haters on Twitter who were like, they throw these videos together where he overthrows a receiver and this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, I was like, you're a Dolphin fan, like you would trade Dawson, you would trade him for 2 seconds. And like and Diggs has won his welcome out again. I would say this situation where they have a suspect wide receiver core now, but there's June cuts. There's also the draft, which has really good receivers in it, and they also can run. They should be able to run a lot of 12 personnel with two tight ends, with the two tight ends they have. So
Yeah.
they need to rebuild and start with not rebuild, but I need to retool that defensive unit because
Mhm.
it got old really quickly.
It got old fast, and they lost some guys in the secondary
Yes,
that they relied on.
exactly. So what are your
Mhm.
thoughts about that on about the Bills and Josh
So
Allen?
I'm not sure. I haven't really heard the discourse over Josh Allen over people not like Josh Allen. But
Yeah, it's
if
weird.
I'm choosing between whose side of the story I guess I'm on in that situation, I'm choosing Josh Allen. He's never given me any kind of reason to believe that he's like a bad teammate or anything like that. Stephon Diggs has now forced his way out of two different places. And he's a diva wide receiver. I mean, we have him all the time. Like that's what he is. He's a good wide receiver. He's not a top five wide receiver. He's not a guy that is going to change your franchise. Again, I think he played his part for Josh Allen. Their friendship, their working relationship soured. He didn't want to be in Buffalo anymore. He didn't like the Buffalo fans turning on him, I guess, if you will. But look, if you look back at the biggest moments of Stephon Diggs' Buffalo career, you have to put that drop in the Kansas City game there, right in and there. Like it's the biggest drop of the playoffs. Josh Allen, out of all the plays that you weren't able to make in that game, that was the one play that they had to make that would have turned that game for them. I mean, it's a 60-yard pass in the air. It's right to you. It's in your arms. You leapt up and you dropped the ball. And it's a crucial point to make that type of situation. And like you want to blame people for getting mad at you for that situation, that's fine. But you're also getting paid like a number one receiver, and he hasn't played like a number one receiver in, I would say, over a year in that situation. It's an easy cut to be like, we're going to save $40 million over the case of the next 2 years by not having this guy on the roster. He can go to Houston and do his 1 year excellent deal, and we'll try to find a replacement in that situation. It just makes sense for them not to want to pay him that type of money when he hasn't been that type of guy since the first or second year that he's been there. And so in terms of that, especially if if it comes down to a this or that situation, Josh Allen is the top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And that is more impactful than Stephon Diggs could ever be, even if he was the best wide receiver in the NFL for 4 years in a row. It's just a matter of impact in that situation. I'm always going to take the side of the quarterback in terms of play and impact. If he's that good, I'm always going to pay him. I'm always going to concede the idea that the quarterback is the most important player on the field in that situation. So I think wide receivers come and go. I think they'll see a little bit of a drop off in production. They'll probably rely on more, but James Cook was one of the best running backs in football from weeks 10 to the end of the season. He was unbelievable for them down the stretch. And he was really, really one of the main reasons why they won the division. I mean, if you remember, Miami was 9-3, I think, at one point, or 9-2. And it didn't look like Buffalo had even had a shot at the division. And they relied heavily on the run game down the stretch because Diggs was just not that good in the last 6 or 7 games of the year. And by the way, he's never been good in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's an easy call, in my opinion. You want to get sour because your play went down and your attitude may have been checking out over the last half of the season. That's fine. Your side of the story, go get your money, go play good ball with CJ Stroud. I totally get that. You're on a good team. You have a good young quarterback, but Josh Allen is proven that he's a top 5 quarterback consistently every year. He scores, an ungodly amount of touchdowns. He's still healthy. He's still a team leader. Buffalo loves him. He feels like the perfect Buffalo quarterback in that cold weather. And they'll have their moment, So it's just it's a stacked AFC regardless. But yeah, in terms of the Josh Allen thing, my thoughts on Kincaid. And my thoughts on how good I think Kincaid is going to be. Yeah. James Cook was a really breath of fresh air for them. They needed him to be good. Now they can focus on getting another receiver along with Khalil Shakir, who they like there, and to be able to run that through. So I think they're going to be fine. I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, and where do they pick this year? The Bills.
I think 27.
27. So, and if they want to try to move up together, I mean, a good receiver is going to be there for them if they want to go with Worthy or go with anybody like that, Leggett or.
What if Brian Thomas falls to them at 27?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
that's an easy choice. That's an easy choice.
Yeah.
I remember DeAndre Hopkins went 30th to the Texans. You have, like I said, you can find good receivers in every round of the draft, in my opinion. You look at where Puka went. Look how good Puka is with the Rams. He's basically playing Cooper Kupp's spot and had those similar type numbers that Cooper Kupp put up. I mean, obviously it was 1,900 yards in that, but he was a rookie and broke the record for that. So obviously it's going to be a situation where he's going to be able to challenge for some records here in the first 5 years of his career if he stays healthy in that system. So you're going to be able to find guys.
100%. 100%. Well, we did all the quarterbacks, folks. We did the research. We talked about all these quarterbacks. It is time for the Raiders to do
the right thing.
To do the right thing.
We should mention the Bleacher Report, our notification that Bleacher Report reported that the Raiders. Well, first we got a report from a aggregator account, which doesn't make any sense. That they said, well, Mark Davis has given them express permission to be able to trade it up. That was a nothing story. It didn't mean anything. It was a quote basically from, I think, the owners' meetings back in February in that situation where someone was interviewing that, and the article that Paul Gutierrez released attached that to the article of what would it take for the Raiders to trade up to Jaden Daniels? Can they move up? Is it that situation? So it's just conflating two stories and putting them together as one because it's draft season. But the other one, the Bleacher Report thing that just released yesterday, was that the Raiders are not focused on a quarterback at 13. Now, we put this entire show together because we think that the Raiders should and must draft a quarterback in the first round to get the 5th-year option, to get the flexibility quarterback, to finally put all the nonsense we can build a team around anybody, and then once that happens, we'll draft a quarterback nonsense. The Raiders are never going to compete consistently without a quarterback. You can't keep kicking the can down the road and expecting you're going to be the smartest GM in the NFL and build the elite Super Bowl team. You're not the Niners. You don't draft as well as the Niners. You don't sign as free agents as well as the Niners. You
Yes.
don't trade. You don't trade as well as the Niners do. Look at the last two trades they made for players. They were both all pros and number one at their positions. They traded for Trent Williams. He's the best left tackle, arguably of this generation. I would say he is the best left tackle of this generation. I would say he's also a top 10 left tackle of all time. They traded for him. Then they trade for Christian McCaffrey, where they didn't even give up a first for him. He's an all-pro again. He was a back-to-back all-pro, I think, first-team all-pro for them. He's been nothing but exceptional. He's been one of the best players in the NFL for them. Those are the last two trades they made. It's just a matter of the front personnel choices that a team is able to make. Now the Raiders are on their third regime in 3.5 years. No, 4 years. They're in their third regime in 4 years now. Can this regime be the regime that decides, well, we're gonna finally draft a quarterback in the first round, or are we just gonna kick the can down the road? Remember, we've been told by insiders that the only reason that Telesco got the job was because he was a guy that had experience and he was able to have a plan trading up in the first round to get a guy. So we'll see how that comes to fruition, because I can tell you right now, I have some drafts that I'm going to be putting out in that situation if it doesn't happen.
So I think the one thing we're going to do is during the season, maybe after 3 or 4 weeks, we'll just track we'll continue to track this quarterback class and kind of
Sure.
and kind of review how they're doing to keep this going, because I definitely enjoy doing this. And I think next episode is I'm only like to do one mock draft. That's the one thing that Mike Mayock used to do that was really good. He did one mock draft and he was good at it. He should have stayed doing that. He should have stayed doing that.
He should have stayed doing that. Now he's the fall guy forever.
Just stay doing that. Now he's a fall guy either.
2020 draft will remain on his resume for the entirety of his life.
Dude, I'll never let, if he ever is on, I'm telling you, if he's ever on a national football show again, I'm going to do whatever I can to blow that up, because you cannot let somebody who had the worst draft in the history of his team's franchise and also in the NFL, where like nobody's even in the league anymore except for like maybe one or two guys. You can't
I think Amik Robertson and John Simpson,
that's it,
guys that are still in the NFL.
That's it.
And John Simpson is the only one who's actually consistently starting.
And sometimes they're just bad drafts, right? But then you look at who they could have had if they just drafted correctly. Like, I mean,
you can have a bad draft. Reggie McKenzie is the best drafter we've had this century. He's the best general manager we've had, or the best guy in charge that we've had in charge. I would say that includes Al Davis for this century. Rest in peace. But in that situation, he's had bad drafts. He's had really bad drafts. But when you have historically bad drafts and you can't even, like, that run is one of the worst runs we've ever seen anybody. And I get it. It's John Gruden is calling the shots on a lot of that. But what are you doing in that situation? You're doing draft prep. You're doing draft board preparation. You're doing your own scouting. He took full credit for the Damon Arnett pick, which was now, as we see, is one of the worst picks in like ever. Because even when he played, which wasn't a lot, he was bad. So, when you have situations like that, when you put together a 3 first-round pick type of draft and you miss badly on 2 of them, it's just a matter of, it becomes a situation where you don't really know or have any grasp of the BPA aspect, the value aspect, the team needs building aspect. And by the way, they had 7 first-round picks in 5 years and didn't draft a quarterback with any of them. So it just becomes an evaluation standpoint of, you're just not very good under the gun. And a lot of people aren't.
Yeah. And if the story is true about Gronk and Brady, that is the and Gronk has no reason. I hate the Patriots, but Gronk really has no reason to lie.
It is true. Gronk literally went on
Yeah.
TV. Brady has confirmed it. Gronk went on TV and said, "This is the case. It really happened. We were going to play for the Raiders. We were going to play in Vegas." John Gruden said no and vetoed the whole thing.
Dana White was, you know, as the former Patriot, the Patriot fan, tried to get them all to come. And imagine sitting in that room. Like, this is where Mark Davis takes a lot of heat from me, is that imagine sitting your coaches across from you telling you that he doesn't want possibly the best tight end who ever played and the best quarterback who ever played.
As an offensive coach.
As an offensive coach.
Who uses the tight end all the time. It's a bigger personality than him, and he would have taken more credit for winning than Gruden would have. And, it just showed you he had no interest in actually winning. He had an interest in trying to win his way, which he couldn't.
Yes, and I believe somebody did say that some coaches would rather lose than admit they were wrong. And that is John Gruden. And that was John Gruden. That was me. That was me.
I think it was you.
I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it.
You said that.
I say all the time because it's true. His ego is disgusting. I can't deal. I can't deal. All right, Rare Nation. This ride was fun. It's going to continue. Whether it's here or in Spaces, and
so we'll do mock draft and rankings. Yeah.
Yeah, mock drafts. We'll rank the quarterbacks in mock drafts. I would say that's pretty much wraps it up. I don't know what's gonna happen. I know that we will be all on the 25th. Just it's getting there. What today's the 12th? It's coming. Yeah. It's coming before you know it'll be here. So we'll enjoy it. Hopefully they make the right pick. You can always trade up and you can always trade up into the first round for a tight end. I mean for a tackle if you want. Just get that quarterback at 13 or 10 or whatever. All right, Solo. Take care, Raider Nation. As always, go Raiders. Peace.
Go Raiders.